and welcome to the Talking Tech podcast. I'm joined by TSG's Head of IP Product Development, Laura Heath, and Service Desk Manager, Clare Townsend. Welcome to you both and thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
No worries. Thank you.
Well, today's episode is an International Women's Day special, and we will be discussing this year's international theme, Balance for Better, and celebrating the women in our industry. International Women's Day is a global day that celebrates the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women, while also marking a call to action for accelerating gender balance. So, ladies, have you ever celebrated this day in the past?
Yeah, I was gonna say I have. I was lucky enough a couple of years ago to be in New York on Wall Street when the statue of the girl was put up in front of the bull, and there was a great vibe through the city that day. It got a lot of people talking. It was really positive, and I think that was probably my first big experience of International Women's Day.
That sounds amazing. What about you, Claire?
That does. I'm afraid I've got nothing to rival that at all. No, I haven't. And in fact, this year's really, thanks to you, Amelia, the first real time that I've paid an awful lot of attention to it, I have to say.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
but yeah. So you've really raised the profile for me, certainly. And let's hope we do that for other women across the business as well.
So I'm going to just start with a little quiz, actually, just a little bit of fun to get us talking. The first question is, worldwide, women hold what percentage of seats in parliaments?
Ooh, 22%.
Well, that's a good guess. What do you think, Laura?
Do you what? I think I might go a little bit lower and say around about 15%.
15%. Okay, so it is higher than what Laura said. I think it's a little bit higher than what you said as well, Claire. It's 24% of seats in parliaments. But that's still not that many when you think about the entire world. So do you think that there is an imbalance in society? Is it something that you notice?
I think in the UK we're probably higher than that. I don't know the stats, but I think maybe in the UK it's better represented than that. I do feel like there are a lot of women politicians and MPs who do have a voice on TV and radio.
And Laura, is it something that you notice in society?
I think, yeah, I think I certainly do. And I think you notice it across not just from a parliamentary point of view, but even from an exec level point of view as well, and positions in business. So I think there's less than 10% of women sit on exec boards in the FTSE 100 companies in the UK. And when you think about the number of women who are actually working, they are very underrepresented. I think things are changing, and I think there's more awareness of that. And I know certainly businesses and politics are looking to bring more women into these areas as well. So I think it is changing for the better. I think there's a little way to go, still though.
Well, this year's theme for International Women's Day is Balance for Better, and that is to encourage people to challenge stereotypes and inclusive mindsets, but also to highlight that the rise of women is not about the fall of men, and it's about creating actual equality and not just championing women's rights, but everyone's rights.
I think the world's difficult across the board for men and women these days. I think there's an awful lot of demands on people, an awful lot of focus on what people are doing badly as well as what they're doing well. And I think a lot of that is very visible now with social media, 24-hour rolling news, etc. So I think there is a big pressure on people in general. And I guess maybe women feel that more because of that lesser representation. Maybe women feel like they have to try that little bit harder still, but I think the balance is turning, and the more we see women in higher profile roles, the more that will change for the better.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of pressure on both men and women these days to act a certain way, to be high achievers, to be good wives and husbands, or to look a certain way, or to even just juggle a million tasks at once and do it gracefully. Do you feel these pressures, Laura?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth noting I'm a working mother. I work full time. I have 2 children. My husband works full time and he has 2 children as well. Those pressures are felt across the board. I agree with you, Claire. I think that sometimes for women it can be a bit harder. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and I think society puts a lot of pressure on us as well. Like I said, I have a young daughter. She's 7. And I think this whole way that women can be portrayed in the media in terms of we have to be perfect and we have to be beautiful. And I would love to see more around women's achievements. And I know we're starting to see more of that, you know, like women's hockey team, we start to see women's football on TV. You know, we're starting to see more female pundits on football programs. I think these are all really positive. These are all really positive steps. But I think that whole perception of women and, you know, having to be perfect, having to be beautiful, having to have it all figured out, it has a detrimental effect on women's self-esteem. And I think that it's a long-term effect, and it can impact so many other different aspects of your life as well. And I would love to see that addressed more.
So do you think it's a case of having more realistic female role models in society?
Yeah, I do. I think it's more about being true to yourself and kind of going, yes, I'm, you know, I personally am a woman of a certain age, and I don't want to feel like I have to try and look younger or look perfect or be perfect. And that's certainly not what I want my daughter to grow up to. I want it to be more about, this is what I've achieved and this is what I can do, rather than this is what I look like.
I totally agree, Laura, and I'm a little bit further along the line of parenting a daughter. So my daughter's now 18, and she's grown up in the world of social media, really being a really big factor in her entire secondary school career. The sort of programs they've watched, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Love Island, all those sorts of things put so much focus on appearance, and she's very much been makeup throughout that time, more than I ever was at school, you know, makeup, pick selfies, all of that. Fortunately, you know, I've tried really hard to do that strong female role model piece with her, you know, and hopefully she's seen me always working. She's seen other family members, friends, really working females and getting, you know, successful lives. And she's now moved through that and is very much, you know, not so much focused on appearance, much more focused on, this is what I have achieved today. And that's a really nice way to be, and I'm really hoping that her self-esteem will take her through, because I think there's a lot to be said for that whole confidence in yourself and what you bring to the party and to the world and to an organization, not just about how you look.
I completely agree with you there, Claire. But what do you think makes a good role model?
From a female point of view, or just from a across the board? I mean, probably it's the same really for males and females. It's very much somebody who is confident in themselves, who is happy to state their opinion, who has faith in their own decisions, who's happy to make the tough decisions, give the strong messages, because they have a really strong grounding in their own beliefs and strategies and how they've found success themselves. And people who are willing to share that. I've been very fortunate to mix with some really powerful managers and people, you know, across my career. And you know, if we're focusing on females, I have, you know, really kind of made a point of looking at females as far as what's made them strong leaders. Having said that, whenever I've been mentored, it has been by men, strangely enough. But from a female perspective, I've really kind of tried to look at, right, what has made them strong in the workplace? You know, what is it that they bring to the party? Because everybody brings different things, whether they're male or female. Everybody brings their upbringing, their personality, their previous experience. So I think it's all about being open to learning and being clear that learning from other people isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength.
I think it's interesting what you said there about that you've been mentored by men in the past, because I think there's something to learn from everyone, like you said. Do you think being mentored by men is something that's changed the way you are in your career?
I'm not sure. As I say, I think a good manager is a good manager a lot of the time. And yes, as men and women, we do bring different thoughts, different beliefs, different kind of outlooks, just because our minds work in different ways. That's a scientific fact. But I think, I mean, it's been coincidental that I've had male mentors, but who knows whether I would have been different or not. I don't think so. I think I've picked up on the skills and behaviours and capabilities, I would hope, rather than anything distinctively male or female.
So I think it's really not focusing on the genders and just focusing on what we can learn from a lot of different people. Do you agree with this, Laura?
Yeah, I do. I completely agree. I think for me, it's somebody being who they want to be. I love to look at role models as people who are passionate, that they never give up, even when it gets tough. I think that those are qualities that I look up to, and I think I'm the same as Claire. I've had mentors who have been men and who have been women, and there's different things that you can learn from people, and like you say, getting different perspectives and different views, that's all really positive, good stuff that can help you progress in a career. I don't necessarily think that one's better than the other. I think it's just more about what works for you.
Okay, so we're going to go back to the quiz. On that point, talking about role models, who is considered to be the first ever computer programmer?
Oh,
It's a tricky one if you don't know the name.
As I say, I can only remember a first name, and it's Ada, but I can't remember the surname.
oh, yes,
spot on.
yes. I do. Ada Lovelace. Now you said
are
Ada, I remember.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, ding ding ding, you got a point for that one. Yeah. It was Ada Lovelace, and she lived in the 1800s and is considered to be the first ever computer programmer. So that kind of leads us on to women in the tech industry. Could you tell me a little bit about your job roles?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm head of product delivery for IP. So I have the fun job of coming up with ideas and innovation. I have a super talented team who I work with, who help me prioritize that. We are constantly horizon scanning, so we're looking at new emerging technologies coming out, which for me is a super exciting part. And then we look at those technologies, we look at our customer problems, and we come up with hopefully innovative solutions that our customers are going to love and enjoy. We do a lot of work around designing products, around how customers will interact with them, which again is another big reason why I love technology. It's ever changing, and it's not just about the binary and the coding and the architecture. It's about the creativity and that human interaction with technology that personally I love. And then we take those ideas, we build the products, and then we take them out to market as well. So for me, it's a really interesting aspect of technology, and I love the fact that we're so future focused and looking at new ways to solve challenges.
I get the vibe that you've got quite a creative background. Did you know you always wanted to work in the technology field, or is it just something that kind of happened?
So it's a good question. So when I must have been about 4 or 5, my dad brought our first home computer home. I'm racking my brains. I think it was a TRS-80, and it was one of those ones where you had to put the cassettes in. And I remember sitting down, and he plugged it into the screen, and he showed me how to do some basic code to change the color of the screen. Now, as a child, that was just pure magic. I think at that point, I fell in love with technology. Kind of growing up, my dad went to America and he came back and he was talking about the internet. I was like, wow, what's this? And the first time that I saw him talk to a guy in China across the internet, again, it was just like magic. When I went to university, though, I think this is where it kind of fell apart a little bit for me. So I did a joint degree in IT and psychology. And if I'm completely honest with myself, I think at the time I plumped for the psychology bit because it was more the female dominated over IT. I was going to be the only girl in the lecture hall, and I personally struggled with that at the time. So I went down this career path. I did my postgraduate to become an educational psychologist, and very quickly realized that my passion was technology. So I was brave. I took a leap and jumped and started working for a health informatics startup company here in Newcastle. And if I'm honest, I've never looked back. I'm 15 years down the line now. I've worked on big government IT projects, rolling them out, and I've worked for multinational tech companies, and now I'm super proud to be working at TSG as well. So I think, if I'm honest, it was something that I've always been interested in. I don't think I always had the bravery or the courage to jump into it, but I'm so pleased that I did, and I've not looked back since.
And you spoke there about the bravery and courage. It can be quite a leap to make that change or to even just jump into a STEM career for women. And there are a lack of women in STEM industries. It is a fact. What would you say to a woman that was maybe considering a career in the tech industry?
I would say be brave. Be brave and do it. It can be challenging. I think that there's a statistic out there that 25, the STEM industry is only 25% women. So, we are underrepresented. But I would say make the jump, because there are networks out there. There is great support here at TSG. We have fantastic support for women in the workplace. And, that's not just female role models. We get that from our male counterparts as well. We get a lot of support. I would say look into your organisation, because there will undoubtedly be support there, and look externally as well, because we have some great networking groups that do focus on women that can be a good thing to get involved in as well.
And Claire, did you know that you were always going to work in the technology field?
No, actually, far from it. And what brought me into the technology field was really from a different side around. I was in very customer focused roles right from starting my career. It was very much customer service, customer support, which I guess are probably more traditionally female roles. I was certainly the area I worked in was pretty much 50 women and maybe 5 or 6 men, and it was a customer support line for an airline. It then quickly became clear, sort of early 2000s, when the airline launched their website, that technology was very much where the customer experience was going, and where that was what was going to make the difference for customers moving forward. And it was at that point I thought, right, I want to be part of this huge change to how customers interact with companies and with organizations. I want to be right at the forefront of that. And that's when I joined the IT side of British Airways at the time. And again, never looked back. And for me, it was a people management role, managing people doing something else. And that was what sort of helped me to bridge what was quite a scary gap, moving over to manage people doing something really I'd had very little interaction with up until that point. And it was having faith in what I did know and being able to transfer those skills. And that then led me to TSG, and again to a company that certainly wasn't wary of bringing females into management positions. I think from what I know, I was the only female to be interviewed for my role. So certainly that wasn't a factor for the people who interviewed me and brought me in, and it's certainly never been a factor since, as far as the company is very supportive of women in management roles, I think.
Well, you did say there about when you first started, there was roles that were typically men or women. Do you think that there are gender stereotypes that make it quite intimidating for women to get into the tech industry?
In my area, just to continue with my area, certainly from a support perspective, everybody on my second line is male. And I've tried so hard to work out why that is. And we've had the odd woman apply, and we've interviewed them in exactly the same way. And unfortunately, that just hasn't quite worked out at second line. As far as they just weren't quite the right fit, not because they were female, just because of a skills and capabilities from that sort of perspective. So, I mean, my first line team, lots of females there who do a really successful job in fixing issues for customers. 50% of the calls they take, they do fix. So, that shows that, there is certainly a technical bent to what they do, and we're trying to develop that and move those females through from first line into second line and start that really nice sort of that change there. But at the moment, we're struggling a little bit as far as bringing in people externally, and I really don't know why that is.
I suppose that also touches on the thing of one of the issues in the Balance for Better theme is talking about gender equality as an economic issue, and talking about the pay gap. And really, a lot of management positions are men. Do you think that's just because they typically go for those positions and do better with their skill set, and women fall better into other areas of the business? Because addressing a gender pay gap would mean having the equal amount of men and women in all of these roles.
I think for me, it's not necessarily about having equal numbers of men and women in these roles. I think, and this is just based on my experience. I would love to see more sponsorship of women moving from middle management into exec roles and kind of moving through the organisation. I would hate for it to be seen as almost a tokenism. Oh, we'll promote this woman because she's a woman. We'll put her up there. I would far rather see more sponsorship of. I'm going to, I might be an exec level. I want to bring this woman on, and I'm going to make sure that she has everything that she needs, and I'm going to support her, encourage her, and I would love to see more of that. And I think that's a better way of doing it.
So, what do you think the biggest challenges are that women in the STEM industries face?
I think we go back again to that having almost to overprove yourself, just because they maybe are underrepresented in certain industries, not talking about TSG, but on a wider STEM level. I think because there is an underrepresentation, I think the women who are there do constantly feel like they have to overachieve. But it's one of those things where I think women need to be brave and step out into those industries, and the more people that do it, the more women that do it, the more it will just become a natural progression for people, because I think people are inspired by others that they see doing that, and if women shout about it and are more visible in those roles, I think it will be a natural progression that more women will get into those sort of areas of expertise and capability.
So, do you think younger girls should be encouraged to take an interest in STEM subjects and careers? And if so, how do you think this could be achieved?
Well, I think that what I was reading this really interesting study about Sweden, where gender equality is really, it's not a factor, because they largely count themselves as gender neutral as far as courses, etc. go. So it's across the board, everybody's encouraged in exactly the same way. And it's proved that later, actually, people still gravitate to the more sort of what we would call more gender specific roles. So they still have a lot more men going into the STEM industries and a lot more women going into the health, education sectors, etc. So it's not just a UK issue, and it's not just a encouraging an educational level issue. It's very much a wider issue, and I'm not sure what the answer is.
I think sometimes, often people think it's to do with tradition and gender stereotypes, but there could be something in it that women typically go towards those roles, because we are all wired differently, like you said, or men typically go towards different roles. So maybe just encouraging girls that do take an interest in those subjects to pursue that might be the answer.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think so. There was a recent study done by Microsoft, and they were looking specifically at this, and it was from girls from the age of about 6 or 7. So when they're in primary school, and the research is suggesting that by the time they get to this point, that's when classes become less gender balanced, and there's more intimidation, and that's kind of when we start seeing some of that separation. And they did some research where they showed that if these girls have positive female role models in STEM, that 50% of them were actually more likely to progress into careers and have a greater interest in STEM. So I think there's something in that. Again, certainly when I was growing up, I didn't really have any female role models in STEM, and that's not because they weren't there. It's just because there wasn't a platform and there wasn't as much awareness of it. I think that's changing now, and I think investing in positive role models, female role models in STEM, especially at such an early age, and showing girls and boys that STEM is more than just being binary and coding and building robots, that there's a creative aspect of it and there's a magical aspect of it. And I think selling it in that respect would open it up to a much larger audience.
I love what you say there about it being magical. Is there anyone that you admire and look up to?
Do you know what? I think that's it. Sorry, go ahead, Claire. I'll let you go first.
No, I was just going to say that the people that I look up to in our industry aren't necessarily the big names. You know, they're not necessarily people other people would know. They're people that I've worked with and seen progress, or people who've had an impact on my career. And I stay in touch with a lot of those strong females that I've met along the way, because I do get inspiration from them as far as how they've built their careers. And I think, again, that's really important, just to have those people that don't. It's almost better for it to be people that you know and that you're close to and that you've worked with, rather than people you read about, because you never know what sort of slant is being put on their career or their thoughts or aspirations, etc.
What do you think about this, Laura? Is there anyone that you admire?
I completely agree with Claire. I think sometimes the people that you admire most and you can learn from the most are the people who are right in front of you and all around you. And I like the idea that sometimes people can achieve greatness quietly, that they don't have to shout about it, and it's sometimes recognizing that. I know this is a little bit cheesy, but I'm going to say, one of my role models for me at the moment is definitely my daughter. She's like I said, she's 7, and the way that she views the world at the moment, she doesn't have any of that gender bias. Children are children, they're all equal, and she still sees the world full of possibilities, and she can be whatever she wants to be. And I want her to hold on to that for as long as possible. But I think sometimes when I have challenging days, I look at her and I look at how she views the world, and I try to emulate that, because I would love to have that passion that she's got without any restrictions.
I think there is definitely a lot that we could learn from children. One of my colleagues was talking about her interpretation of the old saying, behind every man is a strong woman, and that she believes, in fact, that behind every person there's a strong network, be it man or woman. Do you think there's a network that supports people, and who would you say makes up your network?
Absolutely, 100%. I think anybody who managed to run a household, and with kids in, if you have those, that's a little industry all on its own, and then you have to balance that with the work life, and everything that entails too. And you hope you keep those things in balance. You try to as much as you can, but without a network around you, both at home and at work, I think people really struggle. And I think people who do, struggle the most are the ones who feel like, particularly in management positions, feel like that they have to be this strong figurehead who doesn't need a network, who will just soldier on and make all those decisions and control all of those situations alone. So I think really to be a good manager, a successful colleague, a successful member of a family, you have to have a network and use it, really.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think, Claire, you hit the nail on the head there when you said sometimes in management, the perception is that we have to carry the burden and that we have to do it all on our own, and that it's not the case. It's absolutely not the case. And I think, again, when you mentioned before about role models being people who are close by and all around you, it's absolutely you need that support network. Sometimes just to be able to vent and say, I've had a horrendous day, what happened, but having a support network where you can be that honest and be yourself, but also having a support network of like women in tech or women in industry, because they get your viewpoint as well. But then I think it's also important to have viewpoints of other people. So having other networks, so we've got big tech networks here in Newcastle as well. It's so important. And then you put onto that your friends, your family, what is that whole work-life balance about being able to de-stress after work and having all of that support around you. It's crucial. It's absolutely crucial.
So do you feel like you have the tools to succeed in your roles?
Yes, yeah, I think we do. I think we've got a nice, I've got a good peer group here at TSG. I'm quite new, so a couple of years I was still considered quite new, because I was in a role for a lot longer before this, so I still feel a bit of a new girl, but those networks are really building, and I always feel like I've got support I can turn to within TSG. Also, it's good to get an objective viewpoint as well. So I've got other friends in management roles who will almost certainly have faced similar situations to me in their sort of environment, and you can draw parallels with that. So I think the support is there for me. I just need to look for it and get it from the right places sometimes.
Yeah, I think Claire's right. I think we're very lucky at TSG. We do get, from a women in tech point of view, we do get a lot of support. I think one of the things that I love, and it's something that I'm quite passionate about, is more going into schools and going into colleges and getting the support to do that, to really kind of promote STEM. It's something that I'm super passionate about, and I'm lucky that I get the opportunity to do that here at TSG as well. I think that generally there is good support. I would still love to see more to be done, and I think there's still more that we can do. You know, we talk about having lean-in circles and doing more support within organisations and externally. But definitely moving in the right direction. But I think it's something that it's never done, it's never finished. We should keep going.
So we spoke quite a lot about the negative aspects of being a woman in the tech industry, but also some positive bits as well. What is the best part of being a woman in the tech industry?
So for me, I love this industry. I absolutely, I think that's come across. I love technology. It's constantly marching forward. I can always see opportunities and ideas, and I love the multiple ways that technology can benefit our society and our lives and just make things better to do good. I think one of the best things for me about being a woman in tech is, being able to show my daughter that she can succeed in any industry, irrespective of what thoughts might be out there about it. So I get a lot of pride. I get a lot of pride in that, if I'm honest. I love that, and I love the camaraderie of meeting other women in technology as well. And kind of, we've done this together, and it's really positive. And I feel like maybe I've had to work a little bit harder to achieve, but it makes my achievements all that more special to me.
So, Claire, I'll ask you instead. What makes you proud to be a woman and empowers you?
Well, I really like what Laura said about, the whole being a role model for other people. I think because there's a smaller sort of segment of this industry that is female, it's great to be part of that, both from a camaraderie point of view, but also in the fact that other women in other roles can see that, the management in the STEM industry is a possibility, and to younger people, again, you're right about going out to schools and people seeing that, there's a really good career for me there, and it, to be sort of a little bit of a role model and an inspiration possibly on that level for younger people.
So the theme for International Women's Day, going back to that, was balance for better, and we talked about taking further action for equality on International Women's Day and beyond. I'm going to ask you, ladies, how will you balance for better going forward?
So I think for me, it's about supporting the women in our organisation. Things like lean-in circles, doing more coaching, doing more mentoring, and I think the big thing for me is that I would love to see more women come up through into management positions, into executive positions as well. And again, I think I said this before, it's not about that tokenism, it's about that extra support, providing role models, providing like sponsorship, and really bringing women along to try and address that balance. I would love to see that, and I would love to do more of that.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think mentoring something that as an organisation we're sort of just on the fringes of at the moment, but I think we've got a lot that we can do from a mentoring perspective for other people within the organisation. And I think that whole encouragement, making sure that we are encouraging other people, other females, just to really be the best that they can be within the organisation and not see any barriers, because I think a lot of barriers people put there themselves in some ways, whether they be male or female, they put those barriers there. So it's about, if we're talking about Women's Day, it's about not perceiving there to be a barrier and really just pushing to be the very best that you can be, and build your skills in whatever form that is, to really just go as high as you can in the organisation, wherever that may be.
It's been lovely talking to you, ladies, and I've loved hearing some of your thoughts on women and the business as a whole. Thanks for talking to us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amelia. It's been great fun.
You've been listening to Talking Tech. Subscribe to TSG Limited on YouTube to stay up to date with our latest content.